Hello, my name is Ramona McKee with QuickToStitch.com.
I'm Reagan Dickinson with Graphics Pro.
This is Charlie Calvary. You're listening to Two Regular Guys podcast.
Hosted by Terry Combs RG, regular guy, and Aaron Montgomery.
The place to be for industry news.
The best dad jokes on earth, along with relevant topics to apparel decorators.
Prepare for the wow.
Welcome into the show. It is Friday, April 4th, 2025. I'm Terry Combs. You can find me at terrycombs.com.
And I'm Aaron Montgomery with our Success Group, and we get to guide business owners to more clarity and confidence in their business. And Two Regular Guys is a big part of that pillar, and because training and education is what that is all about, how we guide people to more clarity and confidence. And today's topic, Terry, is something that is near and dear to us. It's probably the reason, the deep reason why we started Two Regular Guys, nearly 13 years ago now. And that is education. And we're going to explore the difference today between education and content and what's being done in our space as an industry and how these approaches might land with decorators. And I guess the other thing is we're curious, right? We want to hear from the regulators and we want to talk through this. Do we think that the industry kind of gets this drumbeat that we've been banging so loudly for, again, nearly 13 years now as educators ourselves? So really exciting topic today. And
and I just came from a trade show, the DTF Expo, and got to talk a little education with some other vendors. So I'm pretty excited about doing this. Should we say that we have a special guest, or how do we phrase this?
Yeah, we do have a special guest. It's not a special guest. He's special.
Always special, but
definitely special. But you know and love him. Erich Campbell is going to be joining us today, Terry, to have this conversation. So, you can't talk education without bringing Erich to the table, because then I think we basically have all of the areas of our industry, not all, I'm making a blanket statement that'll get me in trouble, but we've got a majority of the industry areas covered when it comes to things. But we have to bring Erich in to talk embroidery. So,
and somebody who Erich is somebody who's deeply involved in education every single day. So
absolutely,
we do the show without Erich.
Absolutely, for sure. Looking forward to that.
All right, we're going to skip the secret sauce today, because anybody who has ever heard the three of us on the show all at one time knows that there won't be any extra time at the end of the show, and it's going to be spicy enough to fill our times. But keep an eye open for next week's tips and tricks with secret sauce. And, you can always go back and see secret sauce on YouTube as well. You don't have to watch the whole show. You can just go and search for secret sauce, and all of them are there.
Absolutely. We got a whole playlist for you there. So if you're subscribing to Terry's 5215, you can utilize those as a great tool to start your 5215. So
exactly.
Maybe we'll talk about that today, Terry. I don't know.
On my notes.
There you go. All right. Well, Terry, we do have the news, and I am super excited and appreciate Adrienne being here with us. Adrienne with DTFprinting.com just came off of and I think she's back home from what sounds like a wonderful, I didn't get to be out there, so we'll hear about it, but wonderful DTF Expo out there in Mesa, Arizona. So
absolutely. Adrienne, by the way, Aaron, before you got in, we were chatting about it, and she got home late last night. So she's had a full week of trade show and got up early to talk to us.
Yeah, we really appreciate that. We sent her the email earlier, and I was kind of like, if you can make it. And she's like, yep, I'm in. And so we love it. Thank you so much, Adrienne. So let's hear from her, Terry, if you're ready.
You're ready.
Everyone, I could not miss the news, but I will make this quick because I am going to go sleep for the next 3 to 5 days. All right, first up, Allmade has announced the Our Power, Our Planet Earth Day video contest. The company is calling on consumers and apparel decorators across the country to showcase their commitment to sustainability. The winner will receive an all expenses paid trip for 2 to Honduras to see how all-made teas are ethically and sustainably produced. To enter the contest, you can create and share a short Instagram and or TikTok video reel demonstrating your dedication to sustainability. The winner will be announced on Earth Day, April 22nd. Next up, Ninja Transfers has announced a new AI design tool for apparel decorators. Key features include smart design assistance with AI-powered suggestions for layouts, fonts, and color combinations, and instant image enhancements such as background removal, vectorization, and optimization for printing quality. And last but certainly not least, we hosted the second DTF Expo in Mesa, Arizona this week. Machines and supplies were purchased, knowledge was dropped through our workshops and education courses, and overall, a ton of fun was had, especially at our sold out happy hour Tuesday night at Level 1 Arcade Bar, where vendors and speakers and attendees had the chance to network while playing arcade games. We also judged and announced the winner of the third DTF printing t-shirt contest. Congratulations to Spencer Chernoff of Limitless Transfers. This is Spencer's second win. And thank you to our attendees, vendors, and speakers for making our second trade show so special. And it was great seeing you, Terry. Thank you for exhibiting and speaking. If you missed the show, we will have all of our sessions available for purchase soon. So that's it for me. Like I said, I'm going to go get some rest. Thank you guys. I hope you have an awesome show and an even better weekend.
Wow, that was so good. I again just really appreciate Adrian being willing to be here. Now she can go sleep for those 3 to 5 days. That sounds like a good plan.
Hey, I told her at the show, I'm like, listen, you don't have to do the news on Friday. And she's like, no, I want to do the news. I'm like,
Wow.
okay. We
Yeah.
just, I know what it's like, not, working a trade show, much less organizing a trade show.
Yeah, for sure. So interesting stuff, though. Cool stuff. I love the All Made Earth Day contest. That sounds like a great opportunity. And AI, more AI. Gotta stay up to date there. So
I talked to somebody this week who kept saying to me, but with your equipment, can I print a graphic that I create in AI? And I'm like, well, the printer doesn't care where you made it, but can I print it? Yes, yeah, you can print it.
yes, I think they were like, "Is it legal?" And like, well, talk to an attorney there. That's a whole different ballgame, right?
We'll probably have a show about that sometime this year or next.
Yeah.
How that hit the fan.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, by the way, the DTF Expo, though, just speaking for Equipment Zone, we had a very successful show. So
love it.
And you know what that translates to? We sold equipment.
Yeah. Terry sold something. All right. Love it.
Well, I was the only sales guy there. So yeah, it was all mine.
There you go. Even better. All right. Well, let's check in with some regulators, and why don't we check in with, he's been working behind the scenes here, but can we bring him to the front? Yes.
Why not?
All right.
We can if you want to.
Ask and ye shall receive. I love it. So let's say good morning, some folks. Eric, I know you still got to push buttons though, so that was the agreement. I'll keep my hands in my pocket, and so we got Kingsbury Crafts saying good morning, tuning in. We've got Doug. Hello, everybody from Los Angeles. Ramona from Quick to Stitch. I'm here. I had to get the machines running. So again, we appreciate you guys there. We've got Craig over at Collegiate Press Wide Format, checking in from sunny Boston. I love it. Very good. Appreciate you being here. And Doug, hello, Eric. So there you go.
Guys, I did have a few people come up to me and tell me that they love the show, and I didn't write everybody down, so I'm not going to say anyone because I don't want to leave anybody out. But thanks for, hey, we love at trade shows when you come up and say you listen to the show or what segment you like the best. So just a shout out to everybody that came by the Equipment Zone booth and said hello. So appreciate it.
Love it. That's great. All right. Well, I'm sure one of the things they probably said to you, Terry, is, "Oh my gosh, we love the dad jokes. We can't wait for more."
I do have people come to the booth and go, "Tell me a dad joke."
So do you have to have them like on standby now?
Yeah.
You keep a database available? Okay. All right. That's my standard one. So, all right. Well, speaking of dad jokes, then let's, Terry, you've got a good one for us here. So, now you guys all get to see Eric's reaction live as well.
I apologize in advance. Let's do it.
Well, hey guys, don't you think it's a shame that nothing is built in the USA anymore?
Yeah, that is a shame, Terry.
Yeah, I bought a TV yesterday and it said built-in antenna. I don't even know where that is.
They make things in the wildest places, Terry.
And that head shake, that's what we see every week, and you guys don't.
Yeah. Shaking of the head, rubbing of the face.
Usually a face palm in there. I was like, how yellow was the book you got this out of? Was the question I asked. Built-in antenna on a TV. I'm like, I got it, but
I thought about that. How many people are going to go, what does that even mean?
Antenna?
So do you want to explain it for the younger generation? Is that
There was a time when we had an antenna on our TV rather than
Cable.
before, and then after that the cable, and then after that Wi-Fi.
Yeah, exactly.
That antenna again, weirdly enough.
And that antenna
Found
you
that
would
out.
bring up and tilt it this way and tilt it that way. Okay, stop right there.
Yeah.
We've got a good picture.
But they had to start putting built-in antennas on the TVs when they started actually putting them inside the casing, because people were always like, "Oh, where's the rabbit ears that stick out from the top of my TV? I'm not going to get any reception." Anyhow,
I'm only getting 2 of the 3 available channels.
That's right. That's
At
right.
least you can go into UHF, which that's where I my memories start to fade.
That was the weird dial underneath the regular dial.
All right. Well, before we go too far away here, guys, Terry, can you take care of some housekeeping for us, please?
Absolutely. Before we dive in, we want to thank everybody for checking out the Two Regular Guys podcast. We still need your voices. We would love to have the regulators participate in our show intros that you hear at the top of every show. Go to osg.link/intro and read a few sentences. Be a part of every show. Don't be left out. We are always looking for new guests. So if you or anyone you know would like to join us, go to calendly.com/2, the number 2, to book a future episode, or email us at info@2regularguys with your, tworegularguys.com with your show ideas. If you are listening to the podcast version of the show, we would appreciate you sharing the Two Regular Guys podcast with all of your industry friends so they can become regulators too. We would appreciate you giving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcast, YouTube Podcast, wherever you do your podcast listening. We are there. And if you're watching us live, please join in. We would love to hear your comments and questions about education in the industry.
Absolutely. All right. Well, yes, please join in. We're definitely excited to hear from you guys about the idea of education, right? So are you guys ready to jump in?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's kind of set the stage, so to speak, right? So again, we talked about welcoming Eric in because he's involved in training education every day. Same for Terry and I. It's really kind of a staple of what Two Regular Guys was built on. And so I guess I'd love to hear your guys' take. We definitely feel like we've been advocating for a more education focused industry as opposed to a sales, everything's secret, hidden. I've got all these industry secrets that nobody else will know, kind of thing. What's your guys' take on kind of just why this topic matters right now, and why we've been kind of beating this drum for these 12 to 13 years now?
I'll go first.
Yeah, I'm a better job of throwing it. I forgot. All right, my bad.
I think for me that everything about this industry has come as a surprise to me. When I first got started, I thought everybody learned everything there was to know about the industry. I was sorely mistaken by that. people learn just enough to decorate some shirts, and that's where the education ends. So, when I came into this, when we talk about educating our staff, our crew, I had been doing that. That was a staple of what I thought. I have to do this to have the best product available, to do good work, to deliver on time. It's already in there. Do good work, deliver on time. We're 18 minutes into the show, but so I was always training my crew, my staff. When I had, well, of course, I started with one employee and a few employees, and when I was running larger production shops, 75 production floor employees. Well, part of our Monday morning was education. And if you worked in the art department, by gosh, you knew everything about squeegees and durometer and what it means and why you use different squeegees for different inks. And it just, for me, it was a part of running a business. And then when you get out into the industry and start working trade shows and start speaking at events, you realize that I'm being very broad, not very many people do education. And I think it's for a few reasons. I think it's because I don't know where to start. Maybe I'm faking it myself and I don't want to get called out on doing it wrong. Here's my favorite, Aaron, you referred to this. I don't want somebody to take my secrets and go to the competition, or take my secrets and go into competition with me. I always felt like that I've had the best trained staff in town, no matter where I was. And you know what? Those people didn't leave to go to the competition because I had a work environment that people wanted to be in. They didn't want to go work across town where there's no education, where people didn't know what they were doing, that sort of thing. But I ramble on. Go ahead, Eric.
Oh no, I mean, you're saying the same things that I would say, honestly, for a lot of it. Though I'll say the one thing that sets kind of my reasoning for it apart was that I started out kind of training myself on digitizing. I mean, I really did beat myself up, kind of running through designs, analyzing them myself, reading the manual, and having almost no other contact with it before I was completely in full production digitizing for a medium-sized shop. I mean, we were digitizing for really, really big clients, which is scary. Like, as much as it's little tiny designs, it didn't mean a lot technically. The day you make the sailboat for Nautica, you think twice about how clean that stitching is. Like, it's a lot. And I was really young in the industry when that stuff was happening. So for me, it was like, okay, I really had to do this in the dark. I had no idea, and nobody was giving me any feedback except for literally what feedback came off of the machine. Did it look good or not? Did it run good or not? And I realized that there was tons of stuff that I could have known, especially after I saw industry magazines. The first time I saw real industry magazines and read them, which, by the way, like, my boss had them in the drawer in his office and was like, "Oh, I got one of these. You just came in. You want it?" And this is months after I'm working. I'm like, "We have this. This exists. I could be reading about this and knowing things that I don't know now. Thank you for all that." But it's like, rather than going through all this trial and error, I'm like, man, I really want that education. I want to know. And the other thing is, truthfully, the printing department that we had was much more educated than the embroidery department. Like, we learned by ourselves, whereas the printers were studied. The printers did have more manuals. They did train each other. And then we kind of didn't. It was very, very crafty and cottagey over in my side of the, multi-decoration shop. And I didn't want anybody else to struggle as hard as I did, especially with digitizing stuff. So that's kind of why it started. But now why I think it's pertinent to have this conversation again is we briefly hinted at this idea of the difference between content and education. Number one, there's a lot of content out there that may or may not be formal education or formatted like education, maybe up to and including stuff that I'll cop to it. And there's some good reasons why I think it's still valuable when you do it. But there's also differences that we're going to talk about soon. I know about the vendors and how they're seeing education and content, and what the differences between formal education and leaning on kind of the community education that's out there now. So it's, I think that there's a lot to be said about where are we getting education from? How do we want to format it? And what do we think is effective right now? Because we went from an era of secrets and hiding and not sharing things to an era of so much sharing that you can't wade through it. And that may change how it's serving us. We may have to start looking back. It might be time to do the post-mortem on the first internet era of decoration now. I think we're coming to it. It's good to start to look at people who started online entirely and never did formal training. And what does that mean for people now when we might be seeing less of the formal training?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Good stuff to talk about. All right. Well, let's keep going. Let's see here. and Doug Quinn was there in the formative years. So it may have been built on wings and Irish red beer, but then we figured to sustain it for 12 to 13 years, we probably needed a little more depth to the reason. So, we evolved, Doug. We're not just chicken wings and beer.
We didn't leave it behind, though, Doug.
Yeah, very good point.
What happened to you guys?
Yeah, very good point. We did not leave it behind. All right. So, yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys that are tuned in live right now. Yeah, tell us what your take is on education. What your Terry and Eric just shared. Let's make this a conversation. And I love hearing this and talking about this a little bit, but I kind of sense my role today to be keeping us moving forward. So we'll see how I do. Probably
how did we pick that guy to keep us moving?
I know you guys need to do a better job of choosing, but all right. Well, Eric, you talked a lot. Some talkers were added in, Rena. God, see, I'm going to get off track already. So Eric, as you were kind of talking about the evolution and doing that deep dive a little bit, definitely a great future show, but Terry, you don't have to say how many exact years because I don't want you to feel really super old. But I've been around this space since 2000. Right, so that's 25 years for anybody that doesn't do math like me. Terry, I know you've been around a couple of years longer than that. So
maybe
in
4 decades.
Yes. Yes, indeed. And Eric, remind us again, when did you kind of get started in the space?
About the same time as you, like 99.
Okay.
Right around.
I figured we were kind of in that same spot. They just had you chained to a desk in a dungeon somewhere. But
pretty much, yeah.
My first experience in this industry actually was going to a trade show. My first week on the job, I flew out to Chicago for an impressions show. So interesting times for sure. But let's talk about that evolution a little bit here, right? This idea of, I guess vendor education. We've all sat on the side of being vendors. Terry, you're there. I'm actually just coming back to that, and I'll talk about a new role that I've taken on here. But and Eric, I know you've been on that side of the aisle as well, too, right?
Yeah. Certainly, and still to now in developing software for Brilliance, we really it's a vendor side, it's a service side.
You're 100%. So, I guess start us off with, and I'm going to throw it to you first, Eric. Here, how have you seen this vendor-driven education change over the past 25-ish years that we've been around? And Terry, same, but you can go even further back.
I think that though vendors always take an education, I would say with some seriousness. I think it used to be like, hey, we've got somebody who can do this, who's maybe a salesperson, and we're going to bring them up and they're going to run you through some stuff. Or if somebody did take it more seriously, I know like machine companies used to send somebody out for a couple of days to run you through more training, and there'd be a hands-on period after which then you're kind of on your own. Whereas I feel like I'm seeing a lot of my friends who were in the realm of education, and I'm not naming names on this, but we are starting to become part of the vendor series. We're becoming part of these vendors, either in other official roles or just as educators. And vendors are not only moving toward that to a degree, but I think there are some other shifts that are interesting to talk about. And I'm not going to say every vendor's in the same spot, but I think some of the vendors are moving a little bit away from hands-on education and saying, hey, we're building up this content library, and we might even be flogging this as a benefit of going with us for whatever product that is. Here's this content library we built up that is educational, certainly. And I'd say primarily is still an educational library, but we're building this up, and we have brought on an educator. We have brought on a face for that side of what we're doing. And that is now important to us in a way that maybe it wasn't before, though maybe or maybe not, depending on the vendor, maybe to the exclusion of some of the more hands-on versions of training. So we now have the ease of training online or in Zoom, groups or whatever it is that they choose to do for the, for the medium. And we may not see as much of someone running out to you to be hands-on, to be part of that training period. And it depends on the vendor. Like I said, this is very much piece by piece and also segment by segment. Software is different from consumables, is different from equipment, how this gets handled. But I think that there's a tendency with so much out there and with the comfortability of the decorators of going to YouTube for their information, or of going to a source like that, of saying, hey, here's our video series. But sometimes there you go. It's not necessarily a problem, but it is something where I think sometimes people who might have expected a hand-holding course, now they're getting more of like, hey, look what we've got, and wade into our channel, and here it is. Hopefully there's also some structure there. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. Yeah. So I think there's something to be discussed there. I think, honestly, overall, I'm still going to put this in the positive column. For me, this is a win that vendors are taking it seriously, that honestly, they are bringing people on who actually know what's going on. I have been to shows where you're talking to somebody who's selling you something and they've never touched it. Like, you're talking to this person, they're talking to you, and you're like, okay, so they told you the 5 items you needed to tell me. You have never touched this thing. You have never printed a shirt or embroidered a thing or used this material. And it's not necessarily like a deal breaker, but there's a feeling that's different. And I think that vendors know that and have been bringing people on to be kind of that conduit to the decorators.
Yeah. Almost like users as sales reps, right?
And guests on this show, by the way, we've had many people who were, here was our star person who was a user in the user group, and now they are a official or semi-official part of our education.
Yeah. For sure. Terry, what about you? What's your take on this kind of evolution?
When I started out, there was very little education. I mean, when I bought my screen printing equipment, my sales rep came in and gave me a very cursory, here's how you clamp the screen in the screen, but it was just very, very basic. So, I bought Scott's book, How to Print T-shirts for Fun and Profit, and just devoured it. I devoured the magazines, like Erich was saying, but. That's one of the things that's changed about trade shows, because that was where you went for education. So every seminar had 150 people in it. Yeah. And man, I had to use the full size yellow legal pad, guys. Not
the little half size, huh?
Yeah. And I was just feverishly writing notes, and I went to every seminar possible. And I think that's part of the evolution of the trade shows, because, yes, people, we get a nice number of people in our seminars, but there are so many other resources for education. But, and then when you talk about vendors, there's 2 types of vendors. There are box movers and there are partners. And there are lots of box movers in the industry. Yeah, place your order. There's a 10% discount today, and we're going to send it to you. And when you call with a question, call the manufacturer. Here's a link to 7 videos, and that's your education.
Yeah.
Then on the other side, you have companies that are committed to education, and Stalls is the example I use all the time, because they have people on staff. That's their job, to create educational content, to go and do open houses, to do training events. I mean, I was right next to Stalls at the DTF Expo, and those guys are, they are educators, and so those are the extremes of the industry. But I think that it's always in flux. I think also that there are some vendors that have, I'm going to give Epson as an example, because Epson used to require dealers to train people who bought their equipment. They don't require that anymore, but I don't think that's because they want to lessen the responsibility of the dealer. I think they want to make sure that people are getting trained the same way. So they feverishly create training content in little snippets, little 2 and 3 and 5 minute snippets. And I think that they're looking when you require someone to do training and they're not really a trainer, then what's it worth? And so I think that they feel like they need to take. And this is just my opinion. I've never asked them about this, but this is just kind of me observing, because we're always observing education, right? And I think there's some of that. Something that we've participated in, Aaron. I don't know if Eric you've done this, but doing open houses at distributors, at dealers. And gosh, over the last 20 years, I don't know how many open houses I've gone to and done a 45-minute presentation. And then one of the sportswear people, they'll do a 45-minute presentation. And I remember, Aaron, I think you and I were both at Lawson in St. Louis. This was probably 15, 18 years ago. But they invited customers. And as I recall, there were about 150 people that came to Lawson hungry for information. And so that kind of went away during COVID. I'm seeing it coming back, but I'll speak to one more thing. During COVID, Equipment Zone, and I've talked about this in the past, we started doing 2 webinars a week, and it was all about how to sell your product during times like this, something you never anticipated happening. Here are some ideas on selling product. And I will tell you, our sales doubled during COVID. For one reason is because we were educating all the time. Myself and Jay Bassell, we were on air more than we were on the phone. And the other reason was people said, I got laid off, or I'm at home, and I'm never going to let this happen again. I'm never going to be at the mercy of someone else. I'm going to take responsibility for my income. And I hate to say it was a boom for Equipment Zone, but it was. And it created all these entrepreneurs. And there's so many people, so many companies that sprang forth. Yeah, some companies closed down, but I think more came out of COVID than went away. So, my opinion.
Yeah. We need to have one of those disclaimers before the show. The views being expressed might not necessarily reflect those of the 2 regular guys, but since it is our show, they kind of do reflect the opinions of the 2 regular guys. So I love this topic, and I think there is this nuance too, though, Terry. And we'll get to some of the comments here real quick in just a second. But I think there is definitely a nuance in what this education is all about, right? You talked about, Terry, educating, right? What's the purpose? And I think sometimes that's where the gray area happens, and people tend to fall a little bit too far into the marketing and disguised as education versus actual education. I remember when, at the time it was NBM, now Graphics Pro, changed their educational format to, instead of charging the attendees, now it was free for the attendees, but the people giving the speeches or giving the presentations were paying for the space, right?
Yeah.
And I was very concerned about that from an educational standpoint, and a little hesitant to even participate because I didn't want to be kind of associated with this 90-minute sales pitch. And out of the gate, I was really impressed with what I saw. People actually didn't turn it into a 90-minute sales pitch. But I think as it evolved over time, people started realizing I've got to get more sales out of this. So I've got to be pitching the whole time. And I've seen some situations where it's like, okay, but are you giving people the information they need to be successful, whether they buy from you or not? And I think that's really the sweet spot. From an immediate bottom line dollar situation, it's hard to make that call. But I think from a long-term sustainable, Terry, you've been in this industry forever. Eric and I have been in this industry for a long time. There's a reason for that. Right? It wasn't about trying to take everybody's dollars. It was about educating, and then it kind of came around. So
Well, you know, I
That's
do say in my classes, I show all the different trade show events, and I list, you know, when they are and how to sign up. And I'll say, okay, this trade show, you pay for your seminars. This trade show, you pay for your seminars. This trade show, seminars are free. And then I go, nothing in life is free. So anticipate at some point in that presentation, there's going to be a sales pitch because they paid money to have you in a room with them. So
Yeah. It doesn't necessarily mean that the educational content is poor. I think
right.
that's true. I mean, we've
no,
got,
but you have to
because
take
that's like
it with a grain of
Stalls will be selling you Stalls solutions, but we know Stalls has solid education and they've been doing it forever. We've talked about them earlier, and I know that's the same thing for a lot of folks. But I think the old adage is true. If everything is free, then you're the product.
Yeah.
And that's just what it is. I mean, your attention as a decorator, as an attendee, is the product being sold to the people who are there to
Yeah.
show their wares. I mean, that's not anything we don't know, but it's worth understanding.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. It's fair to say that and to understand that that's true. But I'm gladdened to see that I think more of the vendors get that real education, not just a pitch, will bring more long-term dividends with people who are in the industry long-term and with their relationships improving.
Yeah.
You know, kind of in the early days of early days of me being at Equipment Zone selling the you know, the Epson printers, we would do a 4 or 5 hour day before the show seminar, you know, attached to Impressions Expo or Graphics Pro Expo or whoever. But at the end, I would say, okay, at this point, for the next 5 minutes, we're going to talk a little bit about our products. And I gave them that
Sure.
cutoff point. We've been talking education for the last 4.5 hours. So everybody be aware, we're going to talk about our products right now. And so it was like the commercial in the middle, you know. So
Yeah.
I was always like you guys. I was always uncomfortable having it turn into a pitch. So I just separated the pitch, and yeah, if somebody wanted to get up and leave, they did. But you know, it's kind of interesting also because just the fact that you're using your equipment in the demonstration, and my example is even way back doing screen printing classes at US Screen. I think that 95% of the people that left that 2-day class, they had written down Union Ink. They had written down the names of all the different brands, and they went home and bought all those brands. That's why the folks at PMI Split Tape, anybody that's ever doing a class, they will send you all the tape that you want to give out to your students. And why? Because they're going to go buy PMI Split Tape, because that's what I learned with. So, you know,
It's true. Yeah.
that's kind of soft selling, but it is a fact.
Yeah. I mean, I remember those screen print class days, right? We used to get boxes of shirts from Hanes. And I think I've told this on the show before, so I don't want to be like Terry and have the same 10 stories, but the marketing person there, I said, hey, we really appreciate you sending this. You know, well, what do you get out of it? Kind of was my question. And she's like, we know that when people learn on our shirts, they're going to come buy our shirts to print on because they're comfortable with that. Right. So,
it's true.
I know this works.
Yeah.
So why go experiment?
Yeah. When in doubt, I did it. Yeah. Cool. All right. Let's hit a couple of comments here. Going back a little ways there, Eric. Ramona says, you're never done being educated. There's always something new to pick up, or even something that you've heard or previously didn't recall. You should never stop learning. 100%. We would agree with that. Craig says 7 years in running a printer here, and I found out last month I have full color management software. Nice to not have my hobbyist version of color management software. I'm going to skip the next one from Ramona. Let's get Sean's here. Longer one. The difficulty in training these kids nowadays, videos and content are huge, but hands-on is always going to be the most effective. So we'll kind of leave that one there, and we'll come back to that one in just a second too. I didn't get all the way through it, but Sean, I love the comment. Doug says the teachers are not compensated fairly at Impressions Expo. That's a okay.
It's like, we'll move on past that. But
let me touch on that.
Yeah,
please. it means that people like ourselves who are more professional educators, if you don't have a booth there, it's not worth it costs you money to go there and
Yeah.
teach, which means that the only people doing seminars have an ulterior motive for doing the seminar. And
Yeah.
not that that's I mean, a lot of great educators
Sure.
also work for a company and have a booth there. So I don't want to
Sure.
demean that, but it closes the door on a lot of folks who have years and years of experience who could really be a benefit to those people. Because I mean, literally, I remember going to trade shows thinking if I could just break even,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I want to go and educate. But I really pulled back on a
Yeah.
lot of the teaching that I used to do because you know what's the point in going and it cost me $500 to go there.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
It is sometimes hard to make choices and you have to kind of justify each one. It's like I've had that same problem where depending on location, people are like, oh, well, we just really love for you to come out to X location. I'm like, you guys don't know. Coming from where I am currently out to there is going to be a massive undertaking and there's no paid for that. That doesn't mean that, I go out to all these shows with no booth all the time, but I do have extra support. Very luckily, Brilliance is happy to help me and also give me the time. People forget that it's also just days of traveling and being out on the show floor. And certainly they're getting the my professionalism as a benefit or my, people seeing me out there, surely, but it's not a one-to-one benefit, even for people who are being supported.
You're exactly right. I was just going to say that
It's
as
not
well.
a one-to-one benefit.
Not only are you losing money by being there, but you're also not doing what you would normally be doing every day. So you get the double whammy there.
And the developing of the courses, which is a not inconsiderable amount of time. Courses and course material take a long time to develop.
That hour and 20 minutes of you talking took many times that hour and 20 minutes to put it together and make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might also be because I also decide to give away a book every time I teach. So maybe that's might be my fault.
But I think there's a difference though between educational content and marketing and sales content, right? Sure. And I think that's why, right? What's the end result, right? Like if you're selling a product, that's what you're thinking about and doing every day, and therefore the arc of how you're going to get from point A to selling the product is just a retelling of what you talk about every day. Sure. But when you're developing educational content, it's about understanding, okay, who are those people sitting in the room? Who are those people watching on the other side of the screen? And what is it that they need for this information to be useful and successful to them? And yeah, exactly. That's why for me, I wasn't in Long Beach, right? I had an opportunity to speak out there, but the dollars and cents of it didn't work. And, and then, you kind of wonder why they're not necessarily seen as an educational group anymore, right? So not to be naming names per se, but I just did. So
well, no, I think there's lots of people. Oh no, I'm sorry about that. There's lots of people who are very happy, and honestly, the experiences are great out there. Lots of people go out there, but I think when, like you said earlier, I think it's more impactful on new voices. People who've been in the industry were like, hey, I'm going to take the hit because I know Long Beach is a big show and I'm going to go see all of my people and I'm going to go, make some meetings and all of that stuff. And that's going to happen. And also I just want to be abreast of all of the stuff that's going on in the industry right now. So I'm going to make that trip, but also I'm using it as research for myself. That's why I certainly go. And like I said, I take lots of meetings with lots of people who I know in the embroidery industry when I'm out there. But you're right. There's certainly the calculus changed for me this year. I'm not at every show I used to be at for sure. I had to skip a lot of shows because the calculations just didn't make sense. And it is really hard. At the same time, I think there's a difference between that hands-on education and the in-person, which is not quite the same as hands-on equipment training, obviously, and content. Though I obviously, all of us, including, of course, we're here doing the umpteenth show of Two Regular Guys. I'm going to go do the 200 odd show of Take Up this afternoon. We believe in doing content that's not necessarily a training course because this is not a linear training course by any means. You can't go back to the first part of Two Regular Guys and just go through it and then learn the industry. You'll learn a lot, but it's not linear. But I still feel like there's a lot of value there, but it is a different kind of value. and we have to kind of nut out what it means to lose a section of that because we believe the other section is holding it up. And I don't know that really is the truth.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's keep moving, you guys. Again, it was supposed to be my responsibility to keep us on track, and I got off track. Shocking. I know you guys are not shocked, but
we're never going to make.
Yeah. Well, Doug does have another comment here. It says, coming from the quilting industry, and the quilt instructors are paid fairly and well included travel expenses, right? So you've got.
And Doug also commented there, I greatly appreciate all the teachers I've had at the last two Impressions Long Beach. And that's an example, because I actually saw Doug. I went in and before Dane Clement was about to start his seminar, and I crashed it because I wanted to chat with Dane for a minute. And that's an example of somebody that's there sponsored by his employer, but he's all education. And I mean, Dane is a master educator, and so that's one of the examples of and again, stalls, they understand the importance of education, so they employ educators. And so
we've got nothing to sell directly anyhow.
Exactly right. And it's not just him. There's Kelly. There's the other folks that do seminars. Their job is education. It's not to sell product. So
okay. Well, let's. Okay, I want to go back to Ramona's comment from earlier. Content libraries are okay. Sorry,
we're both pushing buttons again.
Okay. Content library is okay, but the in-person education will catch and cover those things that you only think of on the fly. And so I wanted to save Sean's comment as well. We started into it before, but Sean's comment also kind of speaks to this a little bit as I got into it. If you want to share that one, Eric. The difficulty is training in training these kids nowadays. Video content are huge, but hands-on always going to be the most effective. Everything is case specific. Every customer is different. It's also tough for the novice to recognize the difference between pitch and actual education. One of the many reasons I like you boys, helping people find real resources. If they stand in front of it, do they stand behind it and run it? All important things to consider.
Right. Well, here's what you don't get with online content, and you guys, I know, are going to agree with me. As soon as a couple of hands go up in your seminar, you think, okay, I'm coasting now. The people are engaged, and you don't get that with online content. You don't get to raise your hand and say, but what does that mean if I'm doing this? How does that translate to my business? And that's what you don't get. And I'm notorious for not getting through my slide deck at events, but that's because once the questions start, that's when everybody's really learning there and say, well, but in my business, I do this. What do you think about that? And that's you don't get that by watching a 3-minute video.
Yeah, for sure. Eric, your take on that?
Well, I think not only is that true, I'm going to kind of go two ways with this, and I'll try and keep it tight as I can. Number one, the questions. I still get through my slides because I just talk a mile a minute. I don't let you ask questions. I'm a bad human being. I will stay there after with you for hours, though, so it works out. We just hold court. We have the agora outside. We hold court when we're done. However, I think that there are questions that people bring up that I would never have thought to teach on, because there are times where, and don't get me wrong, there's also times where they give me a question. I'm like, I'm going to have to get back to you. That's big enough that I don't know it. There's like, well, I'm sewing giant designs on hair on hide slabs. And I'm like, you are brand new to this, and I have no idea what you're doing. That sounds really cool. I guess that is a market I've never heard of, and I'll talk to you tomorrow about what cow hair does to your machine, because I don't know. Like that is new to me, my friend. So sometimes that happens. But the other thing is, we'll have people who get together and they have unique use cases that I haven't dealt with, and somebody else there is like, oh, well, the last time I stitched on hair on cowhide, and you're like, please elucidate. Like, let us all know what you did with that, because I don't know. And on top of that, all together, I kind of think it's like a Socratic method. We come to some greater truth about what we're doing because we all have an angle on this thing that comes together and forms a larger kind of truth about what's happening. Plus, we all have these deep experiences of what we're doing. But then I'm going to reach out and go even further and say hands-on experience is still super necessary. I don't necessarily think it's always, it doesn't always have to be observed or with a educator right there on top of you sitting in your shop. That's best case scenario. But there's also a push where I like to see, if nothing else, content supported ways for people to just get their hands on equipment. And my favorite kind of phrase, and I'm not going to use Icelandic for it, but there's an Icelandic phrase that I learned when I was over there where they said, you really understand something when you understand it below your lower jaw. So it's like, it's not all in your head anymore. You got your hands on it. It's in your bones. And that doesn't happen for embroidery until you watch a machine with needles, going through a design, going through the garment and the layers thousands of times. When you start to see that form up, there is an understanding of that physical process that just doesn't come from thinking about it ahead of time. It's not going to come from a book. It's not even really going to come from a video the same way that it does when you hooped the garment yourself. You felt the tension in your hands. You threaded the machine. You watched it run on a design that you designed, especially. There is a certain kind of coming together of these aspects that will never gel the same way if you aren't hands-on. And that's from somebody who likes to do lectures. So that take that how it is. I like lectures and I don't like running workshops with equipment. Honestly, it's not my favorite thing to do. And I still tell everybody the learning ends, or at least the end of the learning above your lower jaw happens there, and the beginning of really understanding happens.
And all the more reason to go to a trade show, because those machines are running. If they're not running, just keep moving
all the time. Yeah, somebody else's is.
Right. But a lot of the folks who were in there, and not always, but a lot of the folks who were in these booths running machines don't necessarily work for XYZ company. They're decorators, they're operators. Watch what they're doing. Those are people who actually print every single day, or embroider every single day, or do sublimation every single day. They're just in that booth demonstrating. I mean, those are awesome people to talk to that actually do the work. And there's a lot to be learned just by standing outside a trade show booth and watching.
I'll say, when you see somebody who's hooping up the next garment, or you see them actually checking a thread break and winding that up, stand behind that guy. He might not be selling you anything, but trust me, you want to see what he's doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like our buddy Lon Winters that's been on the show many, many times from Graphic Elephants. You go to a trade show, he will be actually running an automatic press himself. And man, that guy is a master printer, and watch what he does. Talk to him.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see here. Doug says, Eric, you do a great job.
Thank you.
Leather is my niche. Very few had a lot of info on it, how to digitize or set up. So
100%. Yeah. Leather's a specialty thing. And trust me, it's like leather, hand embroidered, like embroidered laces are another thing where there's a ton of it going on out there, and not too many people actually know how to put it together. There's a lot of that out there. And sometimes I'll get those questions and have to go seek a deeper level of knowledge from someone who knows what's up.
There you go.
It happens sometimes.
All right. Well, let's see if we can do this as the lightning round. Okay. All right. I'm gonna throw 3 topics at you guys, and you guys can take it wherever you want. So, Terry, I'm going to start with you. But you both get the same 3 topics. So, Eric, you'll have some time to think about it. But what are some of the gaps and growing pains of education over the years?
You're going to give us.
I'm going to give you all 3, and you can go wherever you want with it here. You can cover all 3. You can cover 2. You can cover 1. Doesn't matter. What's working and what's not working, and then what's next for education or industry.
Okay, I'm going to take gaps and what's working for 100. No, for together.
I knew you were going to do it. I felt that coming.
You felt it coming, didn't you? He's going to say it.
I thought you'd go for 800, though. Really.
I'm going to say that with the abundance of information, I'm dealing with more misinformation today than I was 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And my example I've given you guys before is people thinking in screen printing, you need to flash, basically cure the ink between every color. That's 40-year-old thinking. And it's, I don't do a class now where somebody doesn't bring it up to me. And it's so there's even more bad information out there. And if you don't know what you're doing, you don't know whether there's good information or bad information. Where's it going? I think I'm seeing an opportunity where vendors are going to be doing more, as I was talking about early, open house type things or educational events. And I bring it up because a manufacturer brought it up to me this week. And so I thought, maybe we're going to get back to that because those are awesome events. And yeah, there's selling involved, but the people in there doing the educating are not necessarily there to sell. So I that's what I'm looking at, that more hands-on type vendor events.
Awesome. All right. Erich, to you. Gaps,
all right.
growing pains, what's working, what's not working, what's next for education in our industry?
Gaps, probably more formal courses. I'm not saying that necessarily has to be fully linear, but people are looking for the full how-to. We've seen like Bonnie Nielsen, who wrote a lovely book called Punch for embroidery. The Embroidery Nerd guys managed to get distribution on that. And they've been selling that. It's got a lot of that kind of linear progression. She does a really great book, and it's selling out with a $70 book. So every time you think you can't sell your book for $10, you want to write about the topic, absolutely you can, because people want something that's a little punchier. And that's where one of the gaps is. As much as I love doing live content, my content, I'm going to do this afternoon. I'm signed up to do it despite my schedule not being great for it. It is very hard for someone to find, how do I do the one thing I need to do? How do I achieve something that's very, granular out of live content? Live content's fantastic for community, and I think that's the good thing that it's doing. We're having better conversations that are more, not only just more educated, but they are deeper and a little more meaningful to what we actually do. However, large bodies of live content are super hard to scrub through, even in the age of automatic transcripts and stuff. It's hard to watch video to get a small nugget of content, where back in the day when it was manuals and articles and written material, it's pretty easy to run to that manual, look at the back of that sucker, say, I need to find out the specific thing about how tension works, and read a document. And it's as fast as you can go to get to it. As much as that feels very old school, it's much harder to go to someone's channel, even if they have that topic, unless they have formatted it shorter. So I think what we might see then, and I'm actually already seeing this move now, is more of the people who are doing content like we do, like I do, where there's a little more conversations, broader and longer. You're going to see even those people also putting out content like the secret sauce. I think we're kind of ahead of it on that, where it is bite size, it is very specific to the topic, and it's a little more linear. But we also need that as far as linear coursework. Here's the foundation, here's the next step, and here's how you know what you've done correctly or not. Yeah. Classic coursework, and hopefully not all in silos. I love the people that are out there making individual sites. We have various industry people who are moving to make those content groups themselves, and they're paid for or not paid for, whatever. I'm hoping that in the main channels people actually live in the YouTube space, in areas that aren't just siloed, people will start to decide to do content that is meaningful that way, and also that ranges into some advanced stuff. So what's working, what's not for me, briefly, if I can hit it. Community is working. We now have integrated communities of people who share and do education, not only top down, but to each other. Yeah, Ramona actually says advanced classes. There's lots of start here. We need more advanced stuff. And I'll say this is the hard part. When your content is out there for views are always better, always on beginner information, because people drop off before they get to the advanced stuff. So when you make your money on eyeballs, and number of views, you are always going to you're going to start skewing toward that side. Mm-hmm. That and projects, because what people are actually watching, and I know this, I'm a guy who used to always to watch restoration channels where somebody takes a piece of furniture and scrapes it down and paints that stuff. That calms me down. So you'll catch me watching that. Do I really know how to restore furniture professionally after watching all those? No, because they're not actually technique focused. It's content, and that's where there's the gap. What's working is I probably know more than I did. What's not working is I didn't take a woodworking restoration class, so I don't really know it from the ground up or in a linear fashion. I know kind of osmotically what's there because I've just been around it from watching it. And there's a difference in the depth of information on that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I feel like it's working for community. It's working for broadness of education. What's not working probably is the formal version of this thing doesn't exist. The actual, embroidery, print, university is not really all the way there necessarily. And definitely doesn't live in the spaces where people are looking for the information now.
Yeah.
That was more like rolling thunder than lightning, Eric. But
yeah, I know. I try, but it didn't really work.
Yeah.
I try to keep that tight, but I didn't.
All right. Well, I will take my stab and see if I can be more lightning than rolling thunder, but probably going to be more like anyhow. All right. Gaps. I think you guys kind of alluded to this a little bit, but we've actually talked about this on the 10 things we'd like to see probably for the last 2 years, Terry, is this idea of a seal of approval, and I think the vendors can't be involved with that. Right. I think you do have to have an outside organization. Yes, they can provide content. I mean, that's what I loved about Skills USA, right? We were looking to all of them, but it wasn't about, providing content so they could sell more stuff. It was about how do we educate these young people and give them the best information that's possible, right? How do we keep the flashing between screens thing, away, right? Fortunately, I've haven't heard a whole lot of the dipping the mugs in the sublimation world. So it's like, while Terry's still struggling, I feel like I'm winning, right? So that would be a gap to me. And I don't know, outside of like a Printing United, right? Who takes that on? What's an independent source that could do that? Maybe it is an educational kind of organization, right? We don't have universities that have classes anymore per se, but maybe it is a Skills USA type thing that can take that to the I don't know. That's probably not it, but I don't have an answer there, but that would be certainly a gap that I'd love to see filled. I'm going to go with what's not working. What I feel is not working is when people are putting stuff out there and it is prescriptive, meaning do it this way or you're going to fail. Right. And I'm sure I do that to a certain extent sometimes, but my hope is always to deliver education that is inspirational, right? Like, okay, here's what I've seen worked. Here's some ideas to think about. Here's ways to think about this differently. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what works for you and your shop is going to be completely unique to you. And I think that's what education is all about is we need to take in education and then figure out how to implement that information for us, not figure out how to take their checklist and do the exact same thing. And so I think that's where we're, as people consuming education, you have to look at that and understand, okay, where is this for me? Just because this person is doing it that way, here's the 10 best ways to make money on TikTok, okay, so we're going to go dance and yada, yada, yada. That's all clickbait, right? They just want your eyeballs, what Eric was talking about earlier. So look for education that's inspirational and gives you an opportunity to think differently. And then real quick on the future thing, you guys kind of hit the things I'm definitely feeling and thinking about. And so for me, it's more of a announcement. So as we talk about this, right, I'd love the education. What's always been the struggle for our success group is meeting people where they're at. Right? People hear me and they go, oh, that sounds awesome, Aaron. But what about the toy? What about the shiny object? What about the thing? And so there was always this gap. And so I recently just officially, I guess this will be the official announcement, took on a role as education and community outreach partner at a company called American Print and Supply. And so our success group is still in business, still running, still has the same goals and trying to build mastermind groups and all that stuff. But I'm working with Rob and the team over there at American Print and Supply to help build education, talking about hands-on stuff and educating. They've got a workshop, I'm not a workshop, a open house coming up here in May.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it and I was like, okay, well, let's do some training here. How can we get people to hands-on press some stuff themselves? And, they were all about it. They couldn't wait. So they're ready to invest in that stuff. And so I think it is, right? Understanding that education isn't about selling. Education is about building customer loyalty, helping them succeed, right? When we help enough of our customers be successful, we will be successful as well. And that's how they're looking at it. And I think that's really what the future is in my brain. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, let me span 13 years real quick, because somebody came up to me and is a regular listener on the show and said, "Gosh, I wish there was a way that you could get certified as a screen printer, certified in the screen room." And I thought, we've been talking about that for 13 years. The show.
yeah, I wish we could come up with a solution, but we just haven't found it. There's so many different parts and pieces to it, right? I mean, as nice as it would be, somebody's got to make money doing that, right? So how do you do that?
Well, I think the other thing I always think about for embroider is a lot of it is like, if someone can show you they do good work, they just literally show you the portfolio of their work, and that's what it is. The thing is, where's the access to the equipment then, and where's the access to the initial training? And then that has to be in the hands of people. And if we think about different locations across our country or anywhere else in the world, that is unevenly spread. Your ability to get to a machine and to get to software and to try your hand at something, even if you have learned as much as you can online, is uneven. So it may also be that, hey, maybe we're not going to certify everybody, but maybe we are going to get more of the interested people who want to do this in front of some equipment and find a way to do that. And that might be enough. That would at least be a way where we can maintain this kind of the goodness of decentralized community learning, but still say, hey, here's your proof. Here's how you go on with this thing and say, I've done my work. I've put it in, and here I can prove that I can do it.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Well, I know that we actually got through the whole outline, but I had to bring a lightning round to do it. So
lightning round.
So here's the cool part. I think there's more meat on this bone. We won't necessarily say that there is a part 2 coming up immediately, but if there's other things you guys want to talk about in education, let us know. I think that Terry, Eric, and I would love to come back and continue this conversation, have more of this conversation. So I think it's a great topic, and appreciate, actually, this one is courtesy of Eric. He brought this to the table, and we really appreciate that. So thank you, Eric.
I have a lot more notes, so we need to do another show.
Yeah,
okay. All right.
I wanted to bring up I know I'm giving away something ahead of time. The individual stuff, like you're talking about the open houses, I'm also seeing educators who are holding their own little symposia or their own events outside of everything. And that's another thing. I mean, some people have been doing it for years, like my compatriot over in Brilliance and Lisa Shaw. She's been doing that for years and years. But it's like, I'm seeing more people kind of get the concept of maybe we want an advanced hands-on thing. So there's a lot of different options out there. And I think we haven't explored all of it yet.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Well, part 2 coming at some point, but not officially. Terry, any closing thoughts there for you?
Oh, no, I think that we've touched on it all, and we'll just keep going for an hour if I keep giving more closing thoughts.
Okay. Sounds good.
I couldn't help it.
All right. I have to put that up there. Thank you very much, Rob, and team over there. I'm excited about this too. So.
Aaron's kind of like me. You went that we did a live show. You were there not so long ago. It's kind of like when I went and consulted at Jones and Mitchell Sportswear for 2 weeks, and I didn't leave for 6 years.
These things happen.
It could happen. I was up there actually yesterday and had a blast up there with the team. So exciting stuff happening.
Yeah, I had a coffee with Brian, the creator of Brilliance, and it's been 5 years now. So
oh boy,
that coffee will get you, man.
Buckle up. All right. Well, let's close out here, guys. Talk about. I know we don't have any secret sauce, but I do want to hear what you've got coming up here this afternoon, Eric.
Oh, okay, I will go first.
Yeah. Sorry. Completely out of order.
Well, I wrote the outline, but I'll make it. Today we're going to have episode 219 of the Take Up, and that is preparations and pre-flight for machine embroidery. So in this episode, we're going to talk more about the work before the work, the prep we can do before we stitch to ensure the most efficient production, trouble-free stitching, and make sure we don't waste time, especially with kind of a note to the digitizing testing and the production sides. So join us at the community live at 2:30 Mountain Time or 4:30 Eastern with your insights on how to prepare. So for those about to stitch, we're here to help. Come join, talk about it, and we will get out some of that prep work and prepping your station as well.
Awesome. I'll jump in and then you can close us up, Terry, if that's okay.
Alrighty.
All right, cool. The big thing for me, in fact, I've got to go put some finishing touches on the workbook here still, but today starts a free 2-part webinar series where I'm going to be talking about pricing and value-based pricing specifically, and just basically helping people build a foundation so that then they can charge what they're worth. It will be happening live today at 2 o'clock Central Time. Sorry, was losing my mind there. Now, if you can't catch the live version today, totally fine. Still sign up for it at osg.link/value, and you'll get access to the replay. So we've got a session today at 2 o'clock. It's going to be about 45 minutes, 60 minutes long. And then another session tomorrow at the same time, 2 o'clock on the 5th. Today, all about pricing foundation. Tomorrow, all about charging what you're worth and perceived value. So I'm really excited to offer this free webinar series. And then for those people that want to implement this stuff, then we're going to have some workshops available to them after the fact. But you can get all those details again at osg.link/value. So Terry, what about you? Where are you going to be out on the road here?
All right, my complete screen printing business course. I'm going to be in Chicago at Atlas Screen Supply June 7th and 8th. Probably some other announcements on that area over the next month or so.
Cool.
Watch for all my upcoming events at terrycombs.com.
Love it, love it, love it. All right, good deal. We'll get over there, check that out. And thanks, you guys. This was fun. Really enjoyed this time. We hadn't had Erich in here in a while as well. So getting Erich live with us was great. So thank you both for great information and thoughts on education in this industry.
And also, Erich, thanks for putting the show together and pushing all the buttons when Aaron got in the way.
I was having trouble finding comments.
So much fun.
We were digging up comments from way back, and I lost a couple of them today.
Yeah. I had them in front of me, so I pushed.
I'll take the help.
It's all good. Good stuff. And then next week, you guys, we are in the works. We've got about 3 or 4 shows that are in the works. So we're just kind of seeing whose calendar fits. So we hopefully will have another guest show, but if all else fails, like we said, we've got plenty of meat on this bone to talk about with the education side of things. So looking forward to next week already being around you guys again.
Yeah. All right. Until then, I'm Terry Combs. He's Erich Campbell. He's Aaron Montgomery.
And that was the 2 regular guys.
Here we go. We're out.
Awesome.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of 2 Regular Guys. We're here because of listeners like you, and we're so grateful to have you on this journey with us. For more valuable insight, be sure to visit our website, 2regularguys.com, and join the conversation on our Facebook page. And hey, if you or someone you know has expertise, a unique perspective, or a story worth sharing, we'd love to have them as a guest on the show. Just reach out. Remember, success in this industry isn't just about the equipment you own or the techniques you've mastered. It's about the mindset you bring and the connections you build. Keep learning, stay curious, and don't be afraid to think differently.